His grace, for His mercy, so that we can easily assimilate this knowledge. This is not ordinary knowledge, right? So this is transcendental knowledge. All the knowledges, the topmost is the transcendental knowledge. Even if one is able to understand it intellectually, to realize it is a, another level. So there is a difference between Gyan and then Vigyan. Gyan means knowledge, because material knowledge is also there. I mean, to understand material knowledge also can be sometimes difficult, right? Yeah, there are students here who can attest, right? Like data structures and algorithms, data science, some statistics courses. It's not so easy to understand. And what is because spiritual knowledge is the topmost knowledge. It's not so easy to understand. But we can understand it in discussion. As we are trying to read the Bhagavad Gita and we are churning the knowledge that's given in the Bhagavad Gita, and we discuss, then we can understand it easily. But there is another level. It's not enough to just understand it. It's also we have to realize it. So that's why it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. So the spirituality doesn't start and end. I mean, we discussed advertised this course as I think it's a 9-week or an 8-week course, right? So it doesn't start and end with 8 or 9 weeks. It's actually a lifelong journey. It's an application of this knowledge, which is a lifelong journey. And it has its own benefits. Right? And we'll talk about some of that today, in the discussion today. So we pray to Krishna that we can actually try to assimilate this knowledge and also apply this knowledge in our life and realize this knowledge in our life. So, Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopimkhanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudhiri Pranamami Haripriye Mansha Kalpato Bhishya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavane Vaishnavibhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll start out with a small exercise. We thought we can have a small group discussion. Maybe you can get together with 3 or 4 people in a group, and then we can discuss these 2 questions, maybe for 3 minutes, 3 to, maybe 5, 3 to 4 minutes we can discuss this. And then, from, some of the groups, one person can, volunteer to basically, see what they discussed and then just present a summary of what we discussed, in the group discussion. Is it a good idea? What do you guys think? Let's try it. It's something new, right? Otherwise, you have to hear me speaking all the time. So let's try it. So why don't just 3 or 4 people just talk to your neighbor. Just the first question is, what are some of the highlights from the course so far? You can discuss that. It can be a philosophical point. It can be, it can be about the dinner. It can be about the kirtans. It can be about any point, any of the. But what are some of the highlights? You can talk. Just turn around and say hi to your neighbor. Just 3, 4. 3, 4. I mean, preferably not your own family. I mean, this is also an exercise where you get to know each other. You can actually make a friendship, with other people who are coming here, who are like-minded. So this is also So take 2 minutes to discuss the first question, which is what are some of the highlights from the course so far? Take 2 minutes. Not to be friends. And then if you are finished done with the first question, then the second, please discuss the second question, which is how do you plan to implement the ABCD? For those of you who are coming, how do you plan to implement this? And what are some of the practical steps you can take? So if somebody doesn't know what is ABCD, please explain, to them. Please explain. Somebody in the group can explain to them what is ABCD.
B is book, C is chanting, D is dying.
So we have 1 minute more.
Maybe it's in case of diet,
So how many of you need more time? Raise your hand.
I knew it. I knew it the whole time.
Good job. Any group who needs more time? Okay. Well, 1 more minute, Sham. Okay, so anyone would like to start? It can be just a representative. It's not that because I know that some of you probably missed what is the ABCD acronym and things like that. That's fine. Maybe one of your group discussion members told you what is ABCD, and I mean there's no right or wrong answer. Just feel free to speak about the first question. What are anyone wants to go? What are some of the highlights from the course so far? Anyone? Rahul, yes. Yes.
Okay, so
For the first question.
Yeah, we have 4 people, and then everyone felt something different as a highlight.
Wow.
The consensus, like everyone said, like the ABCD is the highlight everyone has agreed upon.
Wow.
They said like, okay, this really helps us
Mm.
in some way. And we have some candidate who felt like that the 3 modes that we discussed, like every person, everything, every food, everything can be categorized into the 3 modes.
Mm.
This is a bit of a self-realization concept. And then other person has the chariot, the picture that we are showing you, it's just like it's keep looking at it every time because the connection between different parts of it, physical and spiritual stuff.
Wonderful. Let's give a round of applause for Rahul and his team. Anirudh, Pani, and then Maniti, right? Wonderful. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Yes. Who's going to speak for the group?
Oh, this guy.
Yes, Ashwat.
Hi. So the highlights would be how we train the mind to control it. We learned that the mind sometimes acts by itself.
Mm.
Yeah. And then we have to train it. Some ways to train it is the ABC.
Wonderful. Yeah. These are the upcoming stars. Okay. Avasha is going to speak on behalf of that group over there. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Avasha.
So we were talking about highlights from the course. We talked about how the distinction between the mind, the body, and the spirit, and how to train your mind, and about weak intelligence and strong intelligence, and that one day we built both a theater and a house in the same day. Those were the highlights. And we all implemented ABCD via association, and some of us went as far as to also associate chanting, books, and diet.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, let's give a... Is there anybody else who wants to answer, for the first question? From that side, yeah, from that side. Anyone? The group discussion, from the group discussion.
We also talked about freeze,
From the group
fight and flight. Group discussion. Oh yeah, I did a group discussion.
Sure,
Because I
Sugandhi is our own group. So what are some of the highlights from the course? Sugandhi, go ahead.
It's like we talked about flight, fright, and fight, flight, and froze mode, like freeze mode, right? So anything that happens.
Beautiful.
So
Nice.
we have
The 3 Fs.
3 Fs.
On the
Yes.
3 modes. Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Oh my god, I did not.
Anyone? Any points? No. Yes.
Association. How do we keep the association?
How do we keep the association? Yeah, that's the second question. In fact, we can go to the next question. What are some practical steps you'd like to take in life to implement ABCD? Yes. Who said? You said association. Okay. Tishan.
Read Gita book.
Read Gita. Read the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yeah, like chanting.
Chanting. Nice.
And the most important thing, prasadam.
Prasadam. Nice. Are there anybody has thought thought about any really specific practical things that how you want to incorporate this ABCD into your life? For example, you're coming here every week. That's association, right?
Yeah.
That's really, excellent, because this is what actually propels or keeps us going in our spiritual life. Is association, and it keeps the fire. It's the fuel for the fire. It gives us the determination. It keeps us on the path. So this association is satsang. What they call as satsang is very, very important for us to progress on the spiritual path. Very nice. Yes, Rahul, you had a point.
Oh yeah, so when we were discussing the ABCDs, the point D, when we discussed it, we do know it's prasadam and all, but the more important thing, the logical thing that we all want everyone to think about is like what you eat is what you become.
Right.
So it is prasadam definitely what it is, and even if otherwise, always remember what you eat is what you're going to become. So
Yeah, you are what you eat. Yeah, beautiful. You are what you ingest.
yeah, just remember
Yes.
that every time you eat something, and then is that what you want to do.
Yeah, nice. Very nice. Any other practical points?
Three important things for chanting is posture, pronunciation, and prayer.
Yeah, wonderful. Three important things. Very nice. Very nice. Anybody talked about or thought about, incorporating this as an everyday practice, like chanting every day, reading every day? Any thoughts on that?
Like as an example, like okay, I want to wake up in the morning so I can chant. On a practical basis, what
Right.
adjustments are we making to follow ABCD?
Right.
That's
Right.
so it's a
Any
very
thoughts?
specific question. we're asking.
Right. Any thoughts on that?
We have one person in our group who made it. He's using YouTube. She always starts listening to YouTube for the chant and
For the kirtans.
for the kirtans and some small stories. That's why he tries to be part of the ABCD.
Okay.
Basically,
Okay. But yeah, this is the something you can think about, how to incorporate this ABCD into my life. How can I include spirituality into my life? So how can I include spirituality into my life? We have the simple acronym of ABCD. Of course, we all have material duties. We have so many things to focus on. Children, family, work. All these things are there. And how can I add as to start with even 10 minutes. Okay, how do I start? How do I include spirituality a part of my daily life? Maybe to start with for 10 minutes, right? So something you can think about. And then how the more we are able to include these aspects of ABCD, then the more we will actually grow spiritually. Anyway, something to think about for all of you. Anyway, thank you all for, I hope we were able to share some realizations. How did you like this exercise? Good? What is that? Oh, kind of revising. Okay. Yeah. We thought we will do these exercises every week or every alternate week, just to give some questions, food for thought. Okay. So quick recap. What did we discuss last week? We discussed. Some of you already mentioned it. We discussed about the three modes of material nature. How Rahul brought out another point nicely. Yes, Avasha.
We talked about sattva, tamas, and rajas, and how they are the good, the materialistic, and the lazy modes of living.
Yeah,
We
nice.
discussed about it.
Everybody has different terms. That's nice.
We discussed
That's
about
nice.
it in terms of food, books, and other things.
Yeah, happiness.
Mhm.
Yeah, the three modes are pervading everywhere. The sattva guna, rajaguna, and tama guna. And how everything that we interact with, many of the objects of this world, will fall into one of those categories. Not only externally these modes are active, but internally also these modes are active. Like for example, we may have many qualities. How we seek happiness, that is influenced by the modes we are conditioned by. What is our determination? That is, it's a quality of the modes. Understanding, happiness. So Krishna categorizes many. Krishna also categorizes worker in three modes. We all work, right? And then we can see what are the characteristics of people in the three modes, and then see which is the predominating mode for me. So there's so many verses Krishna discusses in the Bhagavad Gita, especially 14th, 17th and the 18th chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna discusses the three modes very extensively and gives a lot of symptoms, behaviors, so that we can identify exactly where we are. And then we can slowly, out of the three modes, which is the best? Sattva. Sattva is the best because one experience is a very refined mode. Where one exhibits, one is regulated, disciplined, all these different qualities. One has clarity of thought, one is self-controlled, and so on and so forth. And sattva is actually very beneficial for the spiritual practices because sattva can be considered as a runway. And then when we grow, we can try to adjust our lifestyle. In fact, the whole chanting process also helps us to elevate our consciousness from rajas and tamas to sattva guna. That's why we try to chant. We have tried to have spiritual practices at what part of the day? The morning, because the effect of the spiritual practice carries through the rest of the day. Even the days are actually categorized into three gunas, right? What is that? Morning is sattva, afternoon is rajas, and evening is, or night is tamas. So all these different modes are active in the different parts of the day. And these spiritual practices helps us to come to the sattva platform from rajas and tamas. Generally, by default, the world is running on rajas and tamas. But if we can elevate our consciousness, we can purify our consciousness to come to the platform of sattva. And sattva is a great runway for where spirituality can take off. Because it gives the framework, like for example, if you're disciplined, that really aids in your spirituality, right? So sattva gives a good platform from where we can rise above to the spiritual platform. But are we part of the three modes or are we beyond the three modes? Huh? Right now we are of course part of the three modes, but is the spiritual being part of the three modes or beyond the three modes? It's beyond the three modes. So that is called as, does anybody remember the Sanskrit name? Shuddha Sattva. It's called Shuddha Sattva. So we can go beyond the three modes, break the chains, and come to the spiritual platform. So that is called as Shuddha Sattva. And that, through the process of ABCD, we can actually go towards that platform. Anyway, that was a quick recap. Yeah, if you can,
all of you
Shyam Prabhu has fit his,
they have a goal to be.
Yeah, and he has fit in almost like 1,000 people here, right?
Break the
Aggressive association.
What is that?
Aggressive association.
No, just
not too much.
you don't know. There is a Shyam Prabhu has a mystic potency. The space expands as more people come in. The space just expands. Anyway, so that's the quick recap we had. And previously, we also, Rahul mentioned about the chariot example. Very important. This analogy is very, very important. We talked about the three modes. Even the mode of goodness, even though it's the best of the modes, is still binding. It's like we are bound by gold chains, but still we are bound in a prison house. So we can break free of these modes by the process of ABCD. By the process of ABCD, we can break free of this samsara by the process of ABCD. That's the solution. Okay, today we have a lot on our agenda. So we plan to be here the whole night. No, just kidding. We will not be able to cover everything in the agenda. So we will cover at least a few points in the agenda, and then we will cover the rest of the points in the next week. So these are this is what we have as agenda. What is karma? That's the first question. And how does the second question is how does my present action affect my future life, or does it? That's a question. And then how is my future decided? You know, does it correlate to what I'm doing right now? And how to be prepared. Anyway, these are why do bad things happen to good people? What are 3 types of actions? Is law of karma applicable to animals? You know, does good and bad karma cancel each other? I mean, you know, all these questions are there. If you're not interested in some questions, we don't have to discuss. So karma at different stages, you know. Is there, you know, karma at different stages, and are there different terms? The karma at different stages, and finally, how to break free of karmic bondage. So this will be the agenda for this week and the next week as well. So we will discuss some questions. So what is karma? When you hear the word karma, what does it come? What comes to your mind?
Good deeds of destiny.
Okay, one by one. Yes.
Karma or action.
Action. Okay, good. So she says action. Yes. Chain reaction. Nice. Dishan. Huh? Curry? Oh, sorry, that's not karma. But I, you know, but you know, thanks for joking. You know, that's a good joke. That's a good joke. Let's give a round of applause for his joke. Is kurma in the menu today? No, that's according to our karma. What else? Destiny. Yeah, it's a good point. So I'm hearing a lot of words. One is action, chain reaction, destiny, and I will come to that. I will come to your point. I really liked your point. Duty. Yeah, very nice.
Attachment is
Attachments. Okay. Yeah, we can certainly say that. Yes.
deeds, good
Deeds. Okay. The pious activities or impious activities like that. Okay.
Consequences of your action.
Consequences.
Your
Yeah,
action.
reactions, chain reactions. He said consequences of cause and effect. Right? Cause and effect. It talks a connection between the concept of understanding between cause and effect. Yes, Shriyan.
Reactionary work.
Reactionary work. Okay. Nice. Very nice. Yeah, all those points are correct. Beautiful. You know, all those points are correct. It can, because karma is a very overloaded term, you know, it can mean different things in different context. Like for example, you know, somebody said action, so karma means action. So depending on the context it's used, it can actually mean actions, and that's why, you know, one of the points we will discuss, you know, today or next week is different kinds of actions. You know, the 3 kinds of actions that Krishna discusses in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's one point we will discuss. The other point we'll discuss is also reaction. Karma can also mean reaction. And you know, some of you said, you know, it's a chain reaction. Like for example, I do an action and then the world responds to me with a reaction, right? So there is a, you know, I do an action and then somebody react to that action and then I react again to that action. And then suddenly there are so many people in my, like let's say, you know, there is a, you know, if there is an argument at workplace, you know, I argue and then, you know, the other person argues, then few other people join and then they take sides and then everybody starts, you know, there is 2-3 people arguing and then there is slowly, you know, this snowball effect. There is action, reaction, and if it really becomes a serious issue, then, you know, it goes to upper management and things like that. So karma is a very complex, and think about 6 or 7 billion people on the planet Earth doing action and reaction and reacting to reactions. And then so it becomes a very complicated mesh. And finally at some point we don't even know what started the whole issue. We will be arguing and suddenly, you know, we are totally, you know, lost. I mean, have you experienced this? We have forgotten the point we started on only. We are fighting with somewhere else. So if it happens with 2 people, what about, you know, 6 billion people acting, and there is reaction, and then there is reaction to the reaction, and then what about countries? a country takes an action and then another country, reacts, and then it again reacts with its reaction. So, and then, it becomes really complex. So karma is applicable at a very individual level. It's also applicable at a collective level. So karma becomes very, very complicated. And then finally you lose track of, how it all started. The only thing you can observe is that the effect that it's producing. Where is the cause? Sometimes we will be able to identify the cause. Like for example, if you eat some unhealthy or spicy food, right, and tomorrow morning you will see, okay, there is some effect in my stomach, and then you can correlate. Okay, this effect is because of that cause. So sometimes we are able to correlate between the connection between the cause and effect, but many times, because it's so complicated, there is so much action and reactions going on, it's complicated mesh, sometimes we may not be able to trace what is the cause to that effect. Sometimes we may be able to, sometimes we may not be able to. Anyway, Krishna himself says karma is very difficult to understand. In the Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter, Krishna says it's very, very difficult to comprehend, especially connect everything, the effect, to a particular cause, because there are so many factors involved. Yes, Avash.
I think a good analogy would be a ripple effect.
A ripple effect.
So when you cause a ripple in water, originally there's a huge ripple and it keeps spreading and the ripples start getting bigger, and then the original ripple disappears but the huge ripples are still going on.
Beautiful. Very nice. Beautiful example. Yeah. Like a tsunami effect, right? Yeah, I mean something like an earthquake or a volcanic eruption happens in the ocean, and then suddenly the effect of that is, not felt right there. I mean, I heard one of my friends discussing this example. One of the person, he was actually, I think in Sri Lanka, especially when the tsunami happened, he was actually enjoying on the beach, and then he was basically, he was surfing or swimming, something like that, snorkeling, he was doing some activities inside. So before he went into the ocean, everything was intact, the whole coastline, everything was intact. But then, when because he was inside the water, he was not able to perceive, much of, what was happening and so on and so forth. But after a few hours, he came out, the whole coastal line was gone. But fortunately, nothing happened to him, but unfortunately, many people got impacted. But he was inside the water, so he didn't get impacted because of, the tsunami that came about. So, the cause is something and the effect is something else. Sometimes we are able to correlate between the cause and effect, and sometimes we are not able to correlate between cause and effect. Anyway, this is the introduction to what is karma. So here is a light note of what is, we can have a request to karma. I will list of people you missed. Yeah. And then this is another, there is something called as Karma Cafe. Welcome to the Karma Cafe. Please be seated. There are no menus. You will be served what you deserve, which is kurma. So that's another, lighter note. Anyway, we'll watch a video. This is one level of understanding of karma, where it's a chain reaction. But sometimes we are able to correlate between cause and effect, and sometimes we are not able to. Did you play?
Oh, no.
I don't think so. Yeah. So we're going to watch a funny video. It's called The Chain of Screaming. Okay? Watch carefully.
Yes, the chain of screaming starts at the top. Arthur's boss's boss screams at Arthur's boss. Arthur's boss screams at Arthur. Arthur screams at you. You go home and scream at Lily. Lily screams at one of the kids in her kindergarten class. Then that kid screams at her dad, Arthur's boss is boss. It's all over again, thus complete circle of screaming.
That was a change.
What? Everybody get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it all starts with Arthur's boss's boss, and then it goes all the way, and then comes back, the child actually, who is a child of Arthur's boss's boss, it comes back. So this is the, we can understand karma at one level, which is, again, here in this situation, we can see that you cannot really see what is the cause and effect, but everybody gets exactly what they deserve. Yeah, everybody gets what they deserve.
Yeah.
So there are two effects of karma. So which we'll talk about this, right now. One is, of course, there are going to be consequences. We saw Arthur's boss's boss shouted, and then the child shouted, the teacher shouted at the child shouted at the father. So we can see that every activity that we do, there's going to be a consequence, right? There's going to be a consequence. So physically, there's going to be a reaction that we get. But then there is one more thing that also happens when we do a particular activity. What is that? So not only is there going to be physically a reaction, but there's going to be a mental reaction. So that is what is, there are two effects of karma. Of course, this is a very subtle point. One is physical reaction we all observe. You shout at somebody, and then probably they shout back at you, or they don't want to talk with you, or whatever. Right? There's going to be a physical reaction that we experience. But then, one thing also happens is, by doing that activity over and over again, what are we doing? We are creating a mental reaction. That is, there is the proclivity to basically shout. The proclivity to basically lose control. So there are two effects of karma. Just hold it for now. So one is the physical reaction, one is also the mental reaction. Now that we have a story time, because I want to introduce some concepts. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. I probably didn't. Yeah, I think that's
Usually in ISKCON, whenever we wait like this, we sing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Let's sing.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you for tolerating.
Thank you for facilitating.
Sorry, I
This is a planned exercise.
Okay.
to to test your karma. Karmic tolerance. Anyway, we'll go through few scenarios. I want some reflections from you. We will drive home a point about how karma works. So let's take 2 minutes to read the first story. This is the first story. Take 2 minutes to read the story and tell me what what you observed reading the story.
Can one person read? I don't think everybody in the app can see it.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, maybe one person can read it.
I can read.
Yeah. Are you able to see?
No, do it
To the
quick.
top.
Do it quick. Yeah, that's the first line.
John founded his company, Bassett Financial Holdings, a few years ago, which had become very successful and had quickly become the shareholder delight. John had got the focus, talent, and investments in the right areas as the company's profit margin grew exponentially. After a few years, however, the company was caught in one of the biggest scandals of the time. As the company's assets and financial results, including accounts had been satisfied from many years, John admitted that he had concocted key financial results, including fictitious cash balance of more than $1 billion, sending shockwaves through the market and likely prompting investors to question other corporate results as well. In a letter of resignation, John says he also overstated the company's profits for the past several years, overstated the amount of debt owed to the company, and understand its liabilities. Eventually, he said the scheme reached simply unmanageable proportions. And he was left in a position that was like riding a tiger, not knowing how to get off without being eaten. He finally concluded, I am now prepared to subject myself to the laws of the land and face the consequences thereof.
Nice, thank you. So, any observations on the story? In light of karma, the topic of karma, what did you observe in this story? Yes, Ashwa.
John did something bad, and he had no choice but to admit that he did bad and accept the punishment.
Right, very nice. So he did something bad, and then he had no choice. Ultimately, karma caught up to him. He was willfully doing something bad, but ultimately karma caught up to him. And he then decided to actually admit that what he did bad, and then he prepared to face the consequences. Right? Any other thoughts? Yes.
So one is he tried to hide
He
what
tried
he
to
was
hide.
doing. He
Right.
knew he did it willingly,
Right.
and he wanted to announce this at different points in time. Looks like, but he did not know when to, and finally he thought like, okay, there is no good time to do
Right.
it. And
He tried to hide it initially, but then later he accepted the consequences of his own actions. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Avasha.
I think we can also look at it in terms of karmic tendencies. Like he said, he overstated profits for several years, so maybe because he overstated once, now he has a tendency to do it again and
Right.
again,
Right.
getting more
Beautiful.
bad karma.
Yeah. Nice point, Avasha. Very nice. Yeah. He basically, he had the tendency, and then he just acted once, or maybe he's carrying this tendency, and then he just acted on the tendency again and again, and then it became part of his life to cheat and to basically give the fictitious balance for the company. Very nice. And then he worked on the tendency, and then he basically got caught at some point. Yes.
So it looks like bad karma is a chain reaction once you start. So even if you at a point you want to come back, you can do it.
I mean, you can,
instantly,
but sometimes
it will
it's
take
difficult.
some time, like you have to come back. Suddenly
Right. So
you can't do that.
Yeah, for every action there is a equal and opposite reaction. So that's why John is actually facing in this life. His last point, Srinivas.
So, just what I think Aksha was saying, to add to that, so he did it once for 1 year, and then he realized that nobody caught him. Nobody, I mean, it's not about just catching him, nobody even detected it. So he felt emboldened to do it again and again and again.
Right.
One point I wanted to add earlier was that whoever was the shareholders, right? So they were completely oblivious of the fact that this was going on, and now they are at the doldrums.
Right. Yeah, they are at the doldrums. Yes. Yeah. Good. I think all those points are good. Thank you for those points. Yeah. Basically, you can see how there is action and then there are consequences. So in this story, you can see that a correlation between action and consequences. And then also tendencies. Right? Good. Now we will go to the next story. Shyam, you want to?
One point in the previous one. So we talked about John and his consequences, but shareholders also.
Shareholders, yeah, that's outside of the scope of the story.
Without any actions in this context, they also had.
Yeah, that's a good point. Without any actions, they are also receiving the reaction. But how they are receiving the reactions, that's a question mark.
That's the risk they are taking.
What is that?
That's the risk they are taking. That's why they're shareholders.
Yeah, sure. The risk they are taking, but they didn't suddenly sign up for fictitious balance sheet. Right. But without their involvement, they are getting ripped off. Right? Certainly. Yeah, good. That's a good point. For second story, anybody else wants to? Yes, Ashwath.
Tory was a congressman from Florida who used his influence to give PG&E the energy contract as he and his party reaped billions of dollars in underhand dealings. Touting to go green, he allowed the company to add a surcharge to the consumers' bills, giving the company the opportunity to increase its profit margin. At the same time, sidelining the research and steps to go green. Tory was an expert in deflecting any investigations related to his fraud through his contact network at various levels in the state. He lived a healthy life well until he passed away at 85 by natural death, surrounded by his loving family. He is survived by his wife, 3 sons, and 2 daughters, shared his estate as per his will.
Yeah. So what did you observe from this story?
Immediate reaction.
Good thing they are turned into the bad person.
Yeah. I mean, this question we have, right? Why do good things happen to bad people? I mean, looks like that's what happened in this this case. We are seeing in our everyday life, right? I mean, so many political leaders in India and also everywhere actually. We see that so many businessmen and so on and so forth, whatever the case may be, but so many people do so many wrong things, but then they seem to escape. They seem to escape and survive. And I completely resonate with your sentiments. That yes, people many times escape. It seems like a lot of reactions need some bug fixes. Right? It seems like that. Okay, let's go to the third story.
Avashya will read.
Avashya, you want to read?
Sure.
Yes.
Are you able to see them?
Yes, she is. Yeah. Thank you, Avashya.
Thank you. Michael was a research scientist who, after graduating from Stanford Medical School, partnered with his friend William to start a joint venture project researching a cure for cancer using anacardic acid. Michael was a bright student with lots of inquisitiveness and passion for research. He gave his heart out for the new venture, and the company started producing tremendous results and attracted many investors, including Google Ventures. Realizing the potential for the venture to become a multi-billion-dollar industry, William removed Michael from the joint venture using tactful lawyers. 10 years later, Michael, who returned to Stanford Medical School to continue his research, gazes helplessly at the check stand in Safeway, displaying Forbes magazine's cover photo featuring William, whose net worth is now $15 billion.
Yeah. So what do you observe from this story?
Bad thing happening.
Bad thing happened. Why do bad things happen to good people? Who's the good character here? Michael. Good. Yeah, why do the question, this story addresses the question, why do bad things happen to
Good people.
good people? So Michael seemed like, he's a very, he's a good person, and then he just did his research, but unfortunately he was just cheated out of the project. So all these different questions, so how do we reconcile these questions?
Should we say past karma?
Yeah, very nice. You guys got it actually. I thought I'll break the truth. Like, how Morpheus. What if I told you, how do we reconcile this? Of course, it's driving home a point also. What if I told you Michael and Tori are the same person? And because we do see all these things in life, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? But then we are not able to fully understand why this is happening, because what we see is only a small amount of window in their life. We are not able to reconcile these facts, we are not able to understand these facts because we are only able to see a small amount of window in their life. We are not seeing the whole chapter. In fact, many times we don't even see the whole chapter in a person's life, and what to speak of different chapters in their book, which means the multiple lives that they had. So, but does it make sense if Michael and Tori are the same person? Does it make sense? Yeah. To some extent. I mean, you may have your own. It's just a story which.
How do we conclude that they are the same person?
No. How do we again, it's what the law of, it's what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us. We may not have the exact correlation, but the point that is being, but it at least makes some sense if Michael and Tori are the same person, because Tori, ripped off, many people's money, and when he was born as Michael, he got ripped off of his own efforts, his own his own what do you call it? wealth, right? So we can see that there is a correlation, but it makes sense when you see it in isolation, Michael's life and Tori's life, then it doesn't make any sense. But when you see it in conjunction, then we are able to see it. So one of the points that we understand about karma is it's not just constricted to one life. The actions and reactions is not just constricted to one life. It actually spans across multiple lives. It spans across multiple chapters of one's journey. In this material world. You had a question, Srinivas?
The same story can be in the reverse order also.
Yeah, it can.
Michael in this life and Tori in the next life.
Yeah, we can. There can be unlimited combinations and permutations, and that's why karma is complex, and that's why we see so many varieties of happiness. People enjoying and suffering and so on and so forth, because the karma is acting. So there can be many combinations, but it's there to drive home a point that it's not just constricted to one life. It actually carries on multiple lives. Yes.
I think you have this question, but out of this many yonis, we once only we become the human. So in my next janma, I'm cat, not human. I did very bad in this life.
Right. That's not what the Vedas. You're right. The principle is there that we can become any. We can go to any species in different forms of life. But it's not that we get only one opportunity, right? So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us that according to the human life is like a junction. So if we utilize our free will properly, if we make choices properly, that's conducive for our growth, then what happens is, because it's a junction, either you can go up or you can go down. So, for example, if you have, we all have driver's license. If we utilize it properly, if we utilize the facility that's given to us by state, but we are expected to obey the laws of the state. We are expected to drive on the left hand side, right? Right hand side. On the right hand side, because this is what I did actually. First time I did my driving test. Because I was new from India and so on and so forth. It was just few months after I came. I took immediately right from the road. I took on the left hand side, and then the lady said, "Wait, please go back. Please come another time." So she rejected my application right there. So, but we are expected to follow the laws. We have to drive on the right hand side. We are expected to follow the speed. We are expected to not be sane while driving, not sleepy, not drunk, and so on and so forth. We are expected to be responsible, and that's why the state has given us this facility so that we can use this facility, and everybody else can actually use this facility in an orderly way, and that's why license is given. So similarly, but if you misuse it, then what happens? If you drink and drive, or if you do something stupid while driving, then what happens? Yeah, you face the consequences. First you are given a warning. Next, you still continue to do it. Then what will happen to your license? It will be cancelled. It will be impunged. And you still continue to do that after the suspension. It will be taken away. You'll be put in jail and so on and so forth. So if you follow the laws, then the facility is there. If you don't follow the laws, then the facilities can be taken away from us. So similarly, the human life is a junction. To answer your question, so if we follow the laws of nature, which is the codes according to what is called as dharma, then what happens is we can elevate ourselves to a higher destination. But if we misuse our free will, then how the license is impulsed. So similarly, we can actually degrade to lower forms of life. So the human life it really depends on how we actually use our human form of life. Yes, Gayatri.
So what part of the karma decides that some people experience or get to enjoy immediate rewards and punishments versus some people like where they enjoy or end their life well, but they get that karma in the next. What is that factor?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not what is that factor. It's just that when this is when. So there has to be let's say for example, I'm just giving an example. It's not that it's it can be different for different people, but many people, all of us experience. Sometimes we see. I can generalize this. Sometimes we see reactions immediately. Sometimes we don't see reactions immediately. Like for example, let's say like in Michael's case, right? In Michael's case, the bad karma or the negative karma is that he has to basically lose everything that he earns, right? But for that to happen, first he has to earn, right? First he has to establish himself. He has to become a big guy or a researcher. So the conditions has to come together so that he is actually first earns a lot and then loses everything. So for that karmic cycle to happen, certain conditions has to be present for him to experience the reactions. So for that, sometimes it's immediate, but sometimes it's not immediate because the conditions are not correct. Like for example, let's say somebody hurts. I'm just giving a very, of course karma is very complex. I'm just giving you some simple example. Let's say you go and hurt somebody's child, right? In this whole life you don't have a child. Now that karma, of how you having a child and somebody else hurting that child and you feeling, the reactions for that. So that can only happen when, the situations are ideal. And then, but not if you don't have a child in this life, that is not going to. It can come back in many other ways, but I'm just giving you an example. So many times the conditions has to be there for people to experience the reactions. Is that okay?
How can
yes. Just one. Oh, sorry. You are raising your hand. Yes.
How can we break the chain of the karma?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question, and that's what will be covered in the next week. Next week's session. How can we break free? the reactions of karma, we'll be discussing that. Yes.
So,
yes.
One of the previous lectures, one of the things what we learned was soul is eternal.
Right.
Right. So, and free will is of the mind, right, which is not connected directly to the soul, right, because soul is eternal. Now, when a person dies, right, his mind, his body dies.
Right.
Right. And karma is
the
done.
mind doesn't die.
Well, free will, so eternal soul is eternal, which is beyond free will.
Right. No, this is the point I will clarify. I understand your question. In fact, maybe your question will answer in the next few slides.
Okay. But you understood what my question
is?
is?
Yes, I understand what your question is. Basically, the body and the mind dies. Then how is the karma transferred over?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So the short answer to that question is only the body dies. The mind doesn't die. The mind doesn't die. The subtle body doesn't die when the physical apparatus is collapsing and is withering away, it's dying. The mind doesn't die along with that. So the mind is the one which carries the soul into the next body. So the mind is still with the soul. So just to answer that question in brief.
But we forget when we take it next birth. Right?
Yes, we do forget.
Then mind also is there.
Yeah, mind is there. It's just that all the details are. We have those impressions in the mind. Like for example, I will explain this in the next few slides. I'll explain this concept. Just hold on 1 second. I'll come back to you. So we have all those impressions like a software. That's the example that we will talk about in the next few slides. Maybe I'll take another till 8. Okay, yeah. Okay. At least we should cover some point. So Atma's, this is where we talk about Atma's journey. So how is this accounting, done? If you have multiple lives, if you have multiple chapters in your journey, so how is this accounting done? We already talked about how the consequence of karma is not just physical but also mental, right? So how all this accounting is taken care of. So that's where we have to look at the Atma's journey, and we have to dwell a little bit into the mechanism for transmigration. How is the transmigration happening? Because karma is very much part of, laws of karma is very much part of transmigration. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, just to recap, that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. So Krishna here is talking about the Atma, the spirit soul. So Krishna is saying that the Atma is indestructible and nobody is able to destroy that imperishable soul. And then Krishna again says a beautiful animation. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. We have multiple bodies even in this lifetime. We talked about this in the first session. But when the body dies, I know the animation is very captivating. You can see, there is a, the child is born, and then all these different bodies are there. All these are different bodies because even the science claims that every 7 years all the cells are replaced. So it's a new body. So we get a new body, and finally the body becomes old, and then the body withers away. And then there is life and death. And not only is the human being changing, we are all changing bodies in the same life, we are also changing bodies across many lives according to what is called as karma. Because we talked about this, human life form is like a junction, and according to the choices we make, either we go up or we go down. So according to our karma, we can also take another human life, or we can go to a higher destination, or we can also go down into lower species of life if we misuse our free will. So according to the laws of karma. So that's what this picture is showing us. So what is karma? So of course we talked about one level of definition is that is action and reaction, cause and effect, but a deeper level of definition of karma is action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called as karma. This is from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks, what is karma? And Krishna defines this, action pertaining to the development of material bodies. So whatever activities we are doing right now, of course there are some reactions that we are getting, but whatever actions and however we are living our life right now is actually creating our future bodies is actually creating what kind of a journey we will have in our future lives. And this whole concept of what we do right now, what are the reactions we get, what is the mentality we cultivate, this whole concept is coming under the bucket, coming under the concept of karma. So whatever actions we choose to do right now is actually creating our future, and that is called as karma. So this is the question: how does my present action affect my future life? So how does all these things work? How does all these things are working in the world? So just to go back, we have two bodies. What are the two bodies we have? We have a gross body, which is a physical body, and we have a subtle body or the mind body. Of course, we are the soul, and we have a subtle body and a gross body. We have two coverings. So what is that connects us from one life to another, that carries those reactions from one life to another? Of course, there is this physical reaction, but there is also a mental reaction. So what is that? So just to quickly recap, so gross body withers at death, but what happens to the subtle body at death? It doesn't die like the gross body. What happens is, it continues with the soul. The subtle body, which is the mental body or the mind body, only withers when we become fully realized, self-realized. When you become fully spiritually realized, that's when the mental body dissolves. Until then, the mental body is there. And Krishna beautifully says, so gross body is there only for one lifetime. The subtle body is there for
many lifetimes.
Multiple lifetimes. In fact, our whole journey in the material world, the subtle body is there. Until we break the cycle of karma, break the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth and death, we go to the spiritual, unless we go to the spiritual platform, we have the subtle body. Of course, the subtle body also keeps changing according to how we train our mind. The subtle body keeps changing, but it's there throughout in our journey in this material realm. So you can think this. We talked about this example, right? What does the software represent? The subtle body, the mind. You can equate the software to the mind and the hardware to the gross body. The gross body, right? So what happens when the hardware crashes? You can replace. If you can replace, yes. What do you do? What do you do when the hardware crashes? Take a rest. That's a good answer. Can you open the window a little bit? What is that? Transfer the data. Yeah, when the hardware, when the laptop is dying, then what do? You try to salvage the data, try to back up the data, and then you try to save that state of that software, right? With all the apps and everything, and then you back up, so that ultimately when it crashes and it's not repairable, then what do? You boot it into a new hardware. And when you open the new hardware, it looks exactly like how it looked in the previous computer. So we can use this example to understand how actually the mind carries. The mind is like the software. How the software can be rebooted into a new hardware. Similarly, the mind has all those impressions. The mind has all those tendencies. Or in the state, you can call it as a state of consciousness. The mindset that you have about life. The mind actually continues and it carries the soul. Krishna describes beautifully as the air carries aroma. Similarly, the mind carries the soul into the next body. Like how the software, when you take the backup and then you boot it in the new hardware, it looks exactly the same how it looked. In fact, including the desktop, right? It's the same apps, the same things, the same look and feel. You will have the same experience of the software when it's booted in the new hardware. So similarly, the mind is the software which carries the soul into the new hardware. And the person, of course, it's in a new body, but then the mind is old. The mind is old. The body is new, but the mind is old. So the mind is carrying all those tendencies. The mind is carrying all those tendencies from the previous journeys, from previous chapters. Yes, Ashwant.
You said it will look and feel the same, but
Right.
wouldn't the computer be at least a little bit different in color?
Yeah, the hardware will be different. The hardware will look different. Like, we may have a different physical body. According to, again, Krishna says how that physical body is determined. Yes, the hardware will feel different, but the mind will feel the same. Yeah.
So say there is a child that's born to the world, and that child would,
So that's what is called as samskars.
It's already okay.
So that is the impressions that the mind carries from the previous. Like, for example, you would have seen some child prodigies, right? I mean, the child is just 5, just 1 minute. So the child actually is just 5 years or 6 years old, but then he can pick up the piano just like that. Just hearing any musical instrument, if they are attuned, if they're trained from the previous life, mathematics, you can give a big number and multiply and ask them what's the answer, they'll be able to immediately tell you. Because they have trained that some scars, what's called as the impressions, are already there from the previous life. That's why a child prodigy means they were actually an expert in their previous life, and that's what it's carrying. And immediately they're able to just, some people, they try to give them, kartals, and then how much ever they try, they will never, you can immediately say this, this person doesn't have any musical sense. They can try as much as they want, but it just, because now you can see, even though the mind has not been trained in the music field actually, but then some people, I've personally seen, with my son, he learned, he plays what Sham was playing, the mridanga, and he learned the whole mridanga just by hearing. There was no teacher, he just hears, and then he starts playing. So some people have this, I cannot do that actually. So, but some people have this uncanny ability because they are not starting from this life, they are actually starting from many lives before. Yeah. Sorry, you had a question.
Yeah. So, if that child already would suffer, if it's decided because of the past karma, how that person would be in this life?
Right, very good question.
How would providing a spiritual environment change that child's life?
Yeah, so that is the concept of prarabdha karma. So how? So very good question. In fact, I think probably we'll cover this in the future next week session. It's a very good question. Just hold on to your question. It's a very good question. In fact, that's where predestiny versus free will. So we'll talk about this. So we all have, we believe that we have free will, we have free choices, right? At least in some situations, not every situation, So one extreme is everything is destined, right? And we're just like a programmed robot, and then we just go through life as we are programmed. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is we have unlimited choices. We can decide where we want to go. So we understand that we understand intuitively that neither extremes are true. Actually, is it free will or is it destiny? Actually, it's a combination of both. Our life generally, propels ahead as a combination of both. And how that is, we'll talk more, in terms of. To answer your question quickly, the environment and the situation we find ourselves in, that is predestined. But within that situation, how we choose to respond, that is still there as a free will. Like, for example, you enter a flight, that's taking off from San Francisco to New York, and then the door is shut, and then the flight has taken off, right? Now you cannot go and shout, no, I don't want to go to New York. I made a mistake. Divert the flight to Miami. I want to go to, Miami now. If you do something like that, they will basically, arrest you and probably, they will blacklist you, right? So the flight journey from San Francisco to New York is set in place. You cannot really change it, right? So that is called as prarabdha karma. So once that flight route, is already set in stone. So that is called as prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma means that is already manifest. Like this body that we have is already a result of karma, our previous activities. So that's why we have this body. And when we are born with this body, we are born with a certain mindset. We are carrying out from previous life, and we are born with a certain bodily features, which is the result of our karma, previous karma. But so those things cannot change, or we can try to change, but it makes it more complicated. But what can change is the flight route cannot change, but what I do inside the flight. So that I have some free will that I can exercise. I can throw a tantrum inside the flight. I can behave well in the flight, or I can just watch a movie and squander all the time, or I can actually read something that's helpful to me and that inspires me and then helps me grow and so on and so forth. So what we can do in the flight, there is some amount of free will. So karma gives you the boundaries, but within those boundaries we still have the free choices how we can act. Anyway, those are some questions. So I think we will stop.
If you want, maybe we can just try to, everybody can summarize what we discussed.
Yeah.
And then we can.
Right. No, we can actually, it's because we are already, what do you want to do? You want to cover a few more slides, or you want to, just summarize what we discussed so far? Summarize, okay. So, yeah, I know, it's a lot of things, it's a lot of concepts. So, who would like to, whatever we discussed, you can summarize one point each. What is that you learned today?
Usually, kids don't get the opportunity, but
kids are more active here.
Yeah. So, for summary, we will ban kids. Adults demand their rights.
Okay. Sham, I have to, Sham Prabhu is the real, the authority here. So I have to follow his authority.
Just because kids are smarter, we are banning.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there like a way to look deeper into the impression?
Deeper into the impression, yes, that's why we need introspection. So the spiritual practices, we have, and also a part of the spiritual practice in terms of chanting, in terms of reading, also includes introspection. So as we look inside ourselves, as we introspect, why did I behave like that? Why did I do like that? How can I, when we look and introspect and understand more about ourselves or more about our conditionings, then what happens is that is very liberating. Then we can start to change those things. What a wonderful question. Beautiful question. That's deep questions. Yeah, and the spiritual practices also helps us to to help us to retrain our mind. Any reflections or comments or questions? I know we just were having a free-flowing discussion. Anything?
This is probably the platform for next week.
Right. So I just want to finish with one point, like how the state of consciousness is carried in the software. The state of the software is carried. So similarly, the state of consciousness is carried in the mind. The state of is carried in the mind. And then Krishna gives more understanding. How is my future? It gives more details, which will go into the next week.
More peacefully.
Right. So let me ask some questions since based on the things we had. So how do you define karma? One statement. Action, consequences, cause and effect. Yes. What else? Duty. Okay. Chain reaction. Tendencies. Yeah. It's called samskars. It can also be translated as some scars. Scars on the mind. You may have a scar in your body. So some scars is the scars on the mind, actually, or the impressions on the mind.
Newton's third law.
Newton's third law. Okay. And so, how does karma? Does karma has effect only in one life, or it carries over in multiple lives? Okay. It carries over in multiple
But
incidents.
where did it start from? That's what I want to ask you.
Hmm.
Like we all talk about today what we are, past lives hai, future we want to, go where merge with Krishna. But where did it all start from?
Right.
How many lifetimes have I gone through?
Right. Yeah, I mean those are. Where did it start from is it's a very deep question which will be answered.
Which will be answered? Okay, I'm waiting for that now. Because I want to know where it starts. We talk about the in between, the our karmas, consequences, everything. But शुरुआत कहाँ से हुई है?
Right. Yeah, that's
what was I in the very beginning? What was I? I'm sure I was a clean person, or in the first lifetime, because we didn't have any karmas. But why did I? Yeah. So what? Yeah. So.
Sure. That question will be answered in the coming sessions. What is the starting point? Right. Sorry, what was the last question I asked?
Sorry.
One lifetime or multiple lifetimes. How are the tendencies carried from one lifetime to another? Through the mind. Nice. And so they are actually stored as impressions and they are carried over from one life to another. Yes, Srinivas.
The question Mata asked about, I must have been a clean Atma when the cycle started, right? So probably that can be correlated to free will and how we people.
Yeah, very good point, Joe. That is correlated to free will. Because we have the free will, we can make bad choices as well. We can make not so healthy choices. We can also make mistakes. And because of that free will, exercise of free will, slowly, we can get entangled.
And it got accumulated all those years, lifetimes.
Add on to that.
But what we have to, of course, we cannot really, dwell so much in the past. But the idea is how we can actually get out of the cycle of karma, and how do we make the best deal of the bad situation we are in, or the bad choices we are in. Yes, Avasha, and sorry, you. Shilpa, yes.
To add on to that, where it starts, karma is just not only what we do and what we experience also. If we keep on getting help from somebody, and we are also taking that debt that we are only receiving, not giving. So in that way also we accumulate karma.
Yes.
So there should be always an energy exchange or something has to be there to clear that.
Yes. Yeah, there is a debt that we keep accumulating, and we can actually clear that. We have to do our duty, our part to clear that. Yes, Avasha.
I had a different question. So is there a thing such as unwilling karma? Like, for example, in my past life, maybe I had a lot of bad karma, and now I'm in a situation, I have been born immobilized, I am like a negative part of the people around me. So they're experiencing bad karma, I am the cause of this bad karma. So is this a chain I'm forever stuck in, or will I ever be able to have will over that karma?
Yeah, it's a beautiful point. It's a very excellent point, and that's why, I will run through the slide. A lot of things are there, but so will I be able to break free of this chain? Will I be able to break free of the influences that happens, over me, that exerts over me, like in terms of my mind and the senses that they are influencing? Will I be able to overcome that? Yes, we will be able to overcome that when we include what is the answer? How will we be able to overcome the ABCD? So the solution comes down to when we are able to make this ABCD as part of our life. When we are able to take these practices, take these concepts and include it in our life as a spiritual way of living, then what happens is we'll be able to overcome the influences of the mind and the senses, and finally we'll be able to come to the spiritual platform.
My question was more along the lines of, is there any karma I'm gathering that I'm not aware of? Maybe I'm doing something unwillingly that is making...
Yeah, absolutely. We do that all the time. That's why we need to become more sensitive. In fact, another word for karma is it's cosmic sensitivity training. So another word for karma is cosmic sensitivity training. So we have to become refined, and that's why the sattva guna that I was talking about, sattva guna, when we come to the mode of goodness, then what happens is everything becomes clear, everything becomes eliminated. And in sattva guna we make really good choices. And by making good choices, then we can slowly start to break free from the cycle of karma. Yes?
Yeah. So, what is the ultimate goal?
Last question.
So, what's the ultimate goal for the soul? So, we're trying, let's say, like right now, there's something that I can do.
Right.
So what is the goal of it? Like?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we'll address it in the future session. I mean, it's connected to her question. Like, where is the starting point or the origin? What is the ultimate goal of the soul? We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Thank you for the nice question. I think we can stop here. Or Sugandhi, you want to?
No, it's okay. I know.
No, we want to, we don't want
it's okay.
bad karma. Bye.
It's not a question, but more on a reflection. Right?
Sure.
Michael's scenario, right? This is how I look at it. Good thing, bad things happen to good people. Maybe that's a test. Whether you are really holding and passing that test, you still not being a bad person and still continue to be a good person. Maybe that you will get more good karma. But like this scenario, Michael's scenario is materialistic, right? So we cannot look at it that way. So that cannot be bad karma.
Yes.
That's just materialistic, right? Maybe he is getting more good karma, but that's not visible. Because
Right. I mean, the point is that it's not just about the painful situation that one goes through. It's what is the lesson that I'm learning through that painful situation. Ultimately, karma is there, not just to make us suffer or make us happy, but ultimately the deeper essence of karma is that what is the lesson that I have to learn here.
I'm still being a good person.
Right. And so in Michael's position, if he had that mindset, the growth mindset, where he is able to see the situation, yes, this is a very tough situation. Of course, it's very tough. It's easy to talk about this in a lecture, and it's very, very tough to accept, first of all, such a situation or such a reaction, even though, in one's life we may not have done anything wrong, but if we have the right mindset, then we'll be able to see, what is the deeper lesson here? What is that I have to learn here? So when one has a particular mindset, then karma becomes an excellent tool in terms of trying to grow and become more sensitive, become more mature, and also spiritually evolve. Because many of you ask this question: how do you break from the cycle of karma? Right? So that is the real purpose and the point behind the laws of nature. Anyway, I think we'll stop there with that, and we'll continue the rest of the discussion in the next week. Yeah, thank you.
For the record, I just wanted to say, kids are amazing. So someone indirectly indicated to me. So when I was asking them, how was the session? Oh, the session is amazing. Kids were answering all the questions. They were giving all the reflections.
No, they were also asking very deep questions.
Actually, amazing questions. Actually, you're uplifting the average of all of us actually. So we were thinking, nice questions.
And also waking some of us from sleep.
So revealing the menu.
Oh yeah, he's going to do that. We are eagerly waiting to see if Kurma is there.
Since he planted that idea now, hopefully that will eventually manifest in the future sometime.
But yeah, please thank you.
So again, as usual, I was thinking, as Prabhu was mentioning a few sessions ago, mind is compared to the software. And Prabhu was mentioning about mind sometimes has bugs. We do bug fixing. And as he was also mentioning about how we get a new hardware and we transfer the software there. But in that new hardware, we keep on updating the software. So I was thinking the software development cycle. So we thank Prabhu for giving us a good connection between the mind, soul, and now also I think we discussed many points. One thing I felt was it's usually very difficult to have a peaceful karma session because people usually have so many questions for so long that they're like, I want an answer for this, and I want an answer for this, and it's like a puzzle. I think we are building that puzzle, and then maybe by next week we'll probably have a much better picture. And even if it takes more sessions, one thing we are committed to doing is answering all questions about karma. As Prabhu was saying, we don't want to take any negative karma with us. So let us thank Sundarananda Prabhu for
I was just facilitating. Many kids answered beautiful.
So, as usual, we will thank the cooks. Swati Mataji, she made bhel. She is here. And we will thank Utkarsh on the Purnima, Sri Devi ji, Gayatri ji, all of them made rotis for us. Vanishri, she made gulab jamun. Bhavana, she made papads. Rishit also made papads. And Shama Kumari, she made sabji, khichdi and ice cream. As usual, we also Ravindra was kind enough to pick the students from the college, so we want to thank Ravindra as well. Dheer has also picked Mandeep and a couple of others from here, so we want to thank Dheer as well. So we will go out through the main door, get our dinner prasadam. It's been offered to Krishna, so it's prasadam, as somebody was earlier mentioning.
It's karma free.
Karma free. Actually, that's, of course, that's one thing. So we will roll up these sheets. Please sit to the wall so there can be more people can sit comfortably. I think it's cold outside. And we need some help with serving prasadam. And if you have time at the end, we will appreciate some wrap-up. Thank you. Thank you.